A bill has been introduced in the U.S. Senate proposing new sanctions against Russia for its refusal to engage in peace negotiations. The legislation includes a 500% tariff on goods from countries that purchase Russian oil, gas, uranium, and other products.
The lead sponsors of the legislation, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal, said it would impose primary and secondary sanctions against Russia and entities supporting Russian aggression in Ukraine if Moscow does not engage in talks, or if it initiates another effort undermining Ukraine's sovereignty after any peace deal. From Reuters report.
The bill has the support of 50 out of 100 U.S. senators, 25 Republicans, 24 Democrats, and 1 independent. 4 members of Congress, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, have already agreed to introduce the bill to the House of Representatives. This bill is a rare example of bipartisan support in the U.S. Congress and comes amid President Donald Trump's frustration over Putin's delays in reaching a ceasefire agreement.
The sanctions against Russia require tariffs on countries who purchase Russian oil, gas, uranium, and other products. They are hard-hitting for a reason. The dominating view in the United States Senate is that Russia is the aggressor, and that this horrific war and Putin's aggression must end now and be deterred in the future, the 2 senators said. From Reuters report.
The bill includes both primary and secondary sanctions targeting Russia and entities support Kremlin aggression against Ukraine. Earlier, the U.S. president stated that Putin is deliberately delaying talks on a ceasefire in Ukraine, and therefore he plans to impose aggressive sanctions on Russia, which may affect its shadow fleet.
Perhaps this irritation will increase. Trump will understand that Putin is playing his favorite game, breaking issues into smaller parts and trying to delay discussions about something or someone or whatever by making new demands. Tired of this, Trump may eventually decide to apply pressure on Russia. The best response to Russia's delays from Putin would certainly be to increase support for Ukraine, directly by providing weaponry.
The president of Finland, Stubb, has expressed support for the sanctions package against the Russian Federation proposed by U.S. senators, stating that maximum pressure on Russia is the best way to stop the war in Ukraine. Stubb is convinced that without maximum pressure, Russia will continue its delaying tactics and the war will persist in the near future.
The best way to stop Russia's war of aggression is to maximize the pressure on Moscow. I welcome the bipartisan sanctions package proposed by Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal in the U.S. Senate. It is ambitious. This package, combined with a clear deadline for an unconditional ceasefire, is a step towards a just and lasting peace. Alexander Stubb, president of Finland, on X social network.
Meanwhile, Russia is ignoring any ceasefire agreements and continues to attack Ukraine's energy infrastructure. In recent days, the Odessa, Sumy, and Kharkiv regions have been targeted. The shelling of frontline areas continues.
Such a systematic and constant nature of Russian strikes clearly shows that Moscow despises the diplomatic efforts of its partners. Putin does not want to ensure even a partial ceasefire. New and tangible pressure on Russia is needed to put this war on a course to completion. We should not wait until April 11th, when it will be a month since Russia said no to the American proposal for a ceasefire. We must act as soon as possible. We are ready to work with all our partners in America, Europe, and the world in the most constructive way possible to achieve such a necessary result, a dignified and lasting peace. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, in Telegram post.
Ukraine is interested in a more intensive dialogue with the US and insists that there is no pressure on Ukraine. This was stated by Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs Andriy Sybiha. According to the minister, Ukraine currently sees a great opportunity to accelerate efforts aimed at achieving a just peace. Reported by Alexandra Zaslavets, Victoria Smirnova, UATV News. The United States is developing sanctions against Russia in the event that Moscow refuses to implement or violates the ceasefire. This was reported by the president of Finland, Alexander Stubb, after a 7-hour meeting with Donald Trump. Stubb also mentioned that April 20th is a suitable date for a full and unconditional ceasefire to begin.
We discussed this with President Trump and Senator Lindsey Graham, the architect of the sanctions package. Trump's patience is running out. He is very impatient with Russia's actions, with this conspiracy, and the delay in the ceasefire. I tried to explain that this is typical Russian behavior. First, you reach an agreement, and then they set new conditions. I saw some of the sanctions, and if they materialize, they will have a very significant impact. Alexander Stubb, president of Finland in London press conference.
According to Stubb, he made it clear to Trump that Russia only understands power, and for this, powerful sanctions are necessary, as well as using frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine. After the meeting with Donald Trump, Stubb shared results with President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The leaders of the two countries discussed security guarantees for Ukraine, which are considered one of the key conditions for ensuring long-term peace for Kyiv. Meanwhile, Trump told journalists that he had set a psychological deadline for Putin to stick to the ceasefire. As reported by NBC News, Trump was injured by a recent statement from the Kremlin head, who claimed that a transitional government under the leadership of the UN, the USA, and the EU should be established in Ukraine, which could effectively remove Zelenskyy from power. The United Nations, Washington, and the Brussels rejected this proposal, affirming that the legitimacy of Ukraine's government is unquestionable. President Donald Trump stated that he would impose secondary tariffs on 25% on all oil if he deems that Moscow is hindering his efforts to end the war in Ukraine.
I was disappointed in a certain way, some of the things that were said over the last day or two having to do with Zelenskyy, because when he considers Zelenskyy not credible, he's supposed to be making a deal with him, whether you like him or you don't like him. So I wasn't happy with that, but I think he's going to be good. And I certainly wouldn't want to put secondary tariffs on Russia, but if they were put on, it would not be very good for them.
Trump had previously stated that he might impose additional sanctions on Russia if he sees that it is not striving for peace. According to the President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, tough restrictions against the Russian Federation and more air defense capabilities for Ukraine are necessary to defend against Russian attacks.
We need diplomatic success, which is essential for everyone except Putin. Therefore, pressure must be applied to him for the success of diplomacy and to save lives. We already have the American proposal for an unconditional ceasefire, and in response to this, daily, we face Russian drones, bombs, artillery shelling, and ballistic missiles. Russia deserves more pressure, all the tough steps that can break its ability to fight and maintain the system that wants nothing but war. Sanctions against Russia are needed. More air defense for Ukraine is needed. More cooperation and unity among all partners are necessary.
Ukraine has irrefutable evidence of Russian strikes on energy infrastructure, said President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Every night, Russia sends dozens of drones to densely populated residential areas of major cities. Civilians are suffering, and civilian and energy infrastructure is being damaged.
No military objectives, only terror against civilians. Dozens of them were injured, including children. Russia's actions show that Putin wants to prolong the war rather than reciprocating Ukraine, US, and partners' effort to end it. Andriy Sybiha, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine on X social network.
The United States will conduct consultations with Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and European countries regarding the monitoring of the partial ceasefire regime, reported the President of Ukraine Zelenskyy. This is a key issue, he believes. Moscow is flagrantly violating the agreements and at the same time blames Kyiv for the violations. The USA and the EU have real leverage to stop the war, reported by Alexandra Zaslavets, Victoria Smirnova, UATV News.